Facts About Pride video for you. I had a lot of fun and learned a lot researching this video, and I hope that you'll learn something too. And let me know in the comments things that you would include in this video, things that I didn't touch on, because together we know a lot and this is not a comprehensive list. Let's get into it. Fact number 1 is that Pride began as an uprising, not a parade. The first Pride March took place in New York City in June of 1970, June 28th to be exact. This was exactly 1 year after the Stonewall uprisings, when LGBTQ plus people led by trans women of colour like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera resisted yet another police raid at a popular queer venue, the Stonewall Inn. The uprising sparked a wave of activism, leading to the creation of the Gay Liberation Front and Gay Activists Alliance, and inspired marches in cities across the US and eventually across the world. It marked a shift from quiet survival to loud, visible resistance, laying the foundation for the global Pride movement as we know it today. Fact number 2. The original Pride flag originally had 8 colours. It was designed by Gilbert Baker in 1978. It had 8 stripes, including turquoise for magic, which I love, and pink for sex. Baker designed this first Pride flag at the request of gay San Francisco Mayor Harvey Milk. He's very famous. If you don't know queer history, the San Francisco airport is named after him. Fun fact. That's a sub fact for you. This flag, it debuted in the San Francisco Freedom Day Parade in 1978 in June. The following year, Baker updated the flag, removing 2 stripes. In 2017, the Philadelphia Office of LGBTQ Affairs added black and brown stripes for underrepresented queer people of colour. In 2018, Daniel Kesar added a chevron to represent people of colour, transgender people, and people affected by HIV and AIDS. In 2021, Valentino Vecchietti added the intersex flag to the chevron. Fact number 3. Pride was banned in many countries for decades. For years, Pride marches were illegal or violently suppressed around the world, and in some places they still are. In Russia, Turkey and Poland, Pride parades have faced outright bans, violent crackdowns by police and arrests, often under the guise of things like public morality or security concerns. In Moscow, Pride was banned for 15 consecutive years, 2006 to 2021, and protesters were routinely arrested. In Serbia, police banned Belgrade Pride for years after nationalists attacked marches in the 2000s. It wasn't until 2014 that Pride was held without violence, with thousands of officers deployed for protection. I'm glad that the police are actually doing their job there, though. I mean, police indifference is definitely something that queer people can expect, unfortunately. Fact number 4. The AIDS crisis completely redefined LGBTQ plus activism. In the 1980s and 90s, the HIV/AIDS epidemic devastated queer communities, especially in the US, where over 100,000 people died by 1990, and more than 700,000 people have died since this crisis began. At its peak, in the early 1990s, AIDS was the leading cause of death for men aged 25 to 44 in cities like San Francisco and New York. The US government's response to this crisis was shockingly slow. President Ronald Reagan did not publicly mention AIDS until after 1985, after thousands had already died. Funding was delayed, research neglected, and public health messaging filled with fear, silence, and stigma. Queer people, especially queer men, trans women, and people of colour, were demonized in the media as vectors of disease. Headlines called it the gay plague, and families abandoned their loved ones. Hospitals refused care, and funeral homes turned away the dead. But amid this abandonment, queer communities showed radical love. Activists formed their own response networks. ACT UP, or the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, used direct action to demand medication access, research funding, and public awareness. Grand Fury used bold guerrilla-style art like Silence Equals Death and Kissing Doesn't Kill to challenge the stigma in the streets and the subways. Care collectives and chosen families provided food, shelter, and companionship. Volunteers founded hospices, held hands through illness, and memorialized the lost when no one else would. In particular, lesbian women, I'm very proud of this as a lesbian, played a key role in caring for gay men impacted by HIV and AIDS during this time. Lesbian nurses volunteered their time and skills to care for positive gay men. Lesbians organised blood drives and collaborated with blood banks to make sure that men with HIV and AIDS received life-saving blood transfusions. Lesbians provided much-needed emotional support and companionship, including volunteering for hospice care to ensure that gay men received dignified end-of-life care. Additionally, lesbians worked to raise awareness about HIV and safer sex practices through organising workshops and hotlines. This fought against the disinformation and stigma. The Names Project AIDS Memorial Quilt was first displayed in 1987. It grew to include over 94,000 individual panels, honouring lives cut short. The AIDS crisis changed queer activism forever, transforming grief into protest, silence into art, and isolation into community. Pride is still illegal in over 60 countries. As of now, being LGBTQ+ is criminalised in more than 60 countries, and in some it's punishable by death. Yet people still celebrate quietly, in secret spaces with coded language or online. Trans and non-binary people have always been a part of LGBTQ+ history. From the hijra of South Asia and two-spirited people among indigenous nations to Christine Jorgensen and Sylvia Rivera, trans and gender diverse people have always existed. Yet, the rights and everyday dignities of trans people and gender diverse people are constantly threatened, abused, or removed completely. In the past 5 years alone, the US and the UK specifically have introduced multiple anti-trans rulings, such as healthcare bans for trans youth, bathroom and sports bans, don't say gay trans laws, and in the NHS, gender-affirming care is restricted. In 2023, the Tavistock Gender Identity Development Service, or the GIDS, the UK's main youth gender clinic, was shut down permanently and was replaced with regional centres and much stricter protocols, making access of care much more difficult for families and young people. The UK has also seen a sharp rise in anti-trans rhetoric in mainstream media and politics, particularly around sports, single-sex spaces, and gender ideology, which we all know is a made-up term used by TERFs to justify their bigotry towards trans people. While not always law, this rhetoric does influence policy direction and public services, as well as just general day-to-day safety of trans individuals who are risking their lives sometimes just by existing in public. The first black gay rights group was founded in 1978. In 1978, the National Coalition of Black Lesbians and Gays, or NCBLG, was founded in the US. This was the first national LGBTQ+ civil rights group led by and for black queer people. At the time, mainstream gay rights were overwhelmingly white, and civil rights organisations often ignored or rejected openly queer members. Black LGBTQ people were then pushed to the margins of both movements, facing racism from within queer spaces and also homophobia from within racial justice spaces. The NCBLG named and fought for that double erasure. It created a space for people who were both black and queer to speak, organise, and be seen fully. The group held national conferences, published newsletters, and advocated for policies addressing HIV and AIDS, police brutality, housing discrimination, and the lack of healthcare access in black communities. Its founders, including Barbara Smith, Phil Wilson, and Audre Lorde, helped shape a new kind of activism, one that recognised the interlocking systems of oppression, racism, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, and classism. Today, we call this approach intersectionality, a term that was coined by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. But the NCBLG was already living it decades earlier. The world's largest pride is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This event draws over 3 million people. Sao Paulo Pride is one of the biggest celebrations in the world, featuring parades, music, drag, and calls for justice. But the significance of Sao Paulo's Pride is much more than just its size. Brazil is one of the most dangerous countries in the world to be LGBTQ+. It consistently ranks among the highest for murders of trans and queer people, particularly black and trans women. In many regions, LGBTQ+ people face violence, family rejection, and police indifference. Right-wing political rhetoric in Brazil has intensified discrimination and undermined LGBTQ+ protections in recent years. So in that context, Sao Paulo's massive pride is an act of resistance as much as it is a celebration. It's a way of reclaiming space in a country where simply existing can be life-threatening. Fact number 9. Pride is stronger with solidarity. LGBTQ+ support for striking miners. In 1984, during the UK miners' strike, a group of queer activists formed Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners, or LGSM, raising money, organising benefits, and standing in solidarity with mining communities facing government crackdowns. At a time when homophobia was rampant in the UK and police violence targeted both groups, these activists recognised a shared struggle. Working class people and queer people fighting for dignity, justice, and survival. What happened next was extraordinary. The miners returned this support, and in 1985, the National Union of Mine Workers marched in London's Pride Parade. Oh, I'm getting chills. Helping shift mainstream Labour support toward LGBTQ rights. This unlikely alliance helped influence the Labour Party's official inclusion of the LGBTQ rights on its platform. Oh man, I've got chills all over my body reading that. That's one of my favourite facts about Pride. I had to include that because one of my favourite movies of all time is called Pride, and it's about this true story of LGBTQ activists supporting Welsh, extremely marginalised Welsh miners who were struggling also with police violence. I think the working class and the queer liberation movement, they are one in the same, and this movie and this story is a beautiful representation of that. So yeah, go watch that movie. It's a great one for Pride. It's called Pride. It's a good one. Fact number 10, and my final fact, is that Pride and a celebration. While Pride today includes rainbows, music and joy, it began and remains as a movement rooted in resistance. Pride is about visibility, but it is also about fighting for our rights, our dignity and our survival, and that of the survival of others. Through decades of protest and organising, the LGBTQ+ community has achieved material victories that were once unimaginable. The decriminalisation of homosexuality in many countries, legal recognition of same-sex marriage in over 30 nations, anti-discrimination protections in housing, healthcare and employment, life-saving access to HIV treatment and gender-affirming care in parts of the world, inclusion of queer identities in education, literature and public life. But Pride also reminds us of what is at stake. Today, queer and especially trans people face rising violence, political scapegoating and legal rollbacks in many parts of the world. Over 500 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in the US in recent years. In more than 60 countries, homosexuality is still criminalised, sometimes punishable by death. Hate crimes are rising, healthcare is under threat, even being seen is dangerous for some. And yet, we keep showing up. Pride is glitter and grief, it's joy and justice, it's protest and it's home. For many, it's the only time that they feel seen, safe and free to exist fully. So when we march, or speak, or whisper stories in the dark, we carry those who came before us and protect those still finding their way. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found this as interesting as I did, and I hope that you have a fantastic Pride, whatever you end up doing. I send my solidarity to you, and yeah, just remember we have a shared struggle with the people, and yeah, keep showing up, keep being loud, and be good to yourself. I'll see you in the next video.